Welcome back to Burn the Haystack with Josh and Jesse.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Josh.
And this is a show all about saving the best and burning the rest. And today we have a brand new Josh rounding out our trilogy of other Joshes. Welcome to the show, Josh Hacko.
Hey guys, my name's Josh Hacko. And I guess we've got my beautiful fiance as well, Maryellen Fairfax. So it's not just a Josh trilogy.
No, Josh is no longer single. He's always with me now.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank Maryellen for letting us take this time out of her busy schedule to lend us Josh. So it's...
and thanks for letting me third wheel. I really appreciate that. So.
I feel like I'm third wheeling right now.
I feel very objectified. Like I'm a possession that needs to be lended out. I kind of like it. It's not bad.
Hey, man, just wait till you get married, man. It's the best.
Oh, man.
Oh, goodness. Hey, so good to have you guys on the podcast with us. Thank you once again for joining us for our final episode of Season 3 of Burn the Haystack. Why don't you tell the lovely people a little bit about your lovely selves? Who the hacko are you? I just came up with that on the spot. I'm sorry.
No, I bet you're the kind of guy that would have that stored up for like weeks on end.
I've just got, yes, I'm going to do. Yes, this is the one. Yes. All right.
Well, my name's Joshua Nicholas Hacko. That's my full name. And I live in Sydney, Australia. And I'm a watchmaker. That's my day job. And for the last, 10 years, I've been attending the same local church and have had the wonderful opportunity to get really involved in all sorts of different facets of ministry. And most recently, and this is kind of like been a little bit of a transition, I went from youth ministry to teen ministry, which I think is my true passion. And
interesting.
Yeah, it's been like a big shift, and obviously it's not been the smoothest start to the year of teen ministry. But yeah, that's like a little bit of lowdown. I work with my father, who's also a watchmaker. That makes me the fourth generation, actually. And
wow,
we manufacture watches in Australia and have a really good time doing it.
That's actually so cool. I legitimately do not know any other person who is a watchmaker. So yeah, so awesome. How did your dad basically? I'm interested in how this happened. Did your dad basically say, "Hey, this is like a father to son sort of generational thing. You have no choice in the matter," or how did that conversation go down?
There was a bit of that. I think there was a really strong expectation. It was never verbal, like one of those kind of "I'll be disappointed if you don't do it" vibes. But I think I never even got to that stage of like contemplating if I wanted to do it. It was always in my mind something that like was just a normal thing. And I think that has a lot to do with like my exposure. I kind of grew up in a workshop, worked the school holidays with my parents, and it felt less of kind of doing a trade or entering into a family business, but just being part of like a family team almost. My parents, they kind of, self-employed and did their own thing and all that sort of stuff. And I was expected to play on their side. Like, I actually remember, I don't think I've told anyone this actually, which is hilarious.
Wow.
But I remember being about 9 or 10 years old towards the end of primary school, and I wanted either to spend some money that I'd saved, or it was go out somewhere. It was something to do with like spending some money, and my parents weren't in like probably the best financial scenario, and Dad just pulled out that team analogy. He's like, we're all playing on the same team, and it'd be really nice if you could save your money and think about your decisions in the context of the whole family. Because like if you spend all your money here, you might not be able to buy something else, and we might have to pay. And it was never the matter of the money; it was more the matter of principle. So that it was never like, son, you got to work in the family business, otherwise it's not going to be great for the family. It was more, come join the family team.
Wow. Oi, that is so cool. That is so cool. Oh, thank you for sharing that with us. I have so many watchmaker questions, but I feel like maybe we can get to that later. But Maryellen, how about you?
Yeah, so my name is Maryellen Fairfax, Maryellen Rebecca Fairfax, if you're using our full names, as Josh did before. And I am employed actually at Adventist Record, which for those who don't live in the South Pacific is basically the South Pacific division of the Adventist Church. It's our division-wide magazine. And it's a really great job because I get to interact with all of the Adventists, and I tend to know everyone and who's doing what. And so it's if you want someone who knows all the Adventist goss, come and see me because I have an answer.
So that's where it all starts from.
Yeah, it's for all those images. No. It's but yeah, so basically I work there as an assistant editor, and I work with a really great team. Everything from writing news stories to graphic design to actually recording, not a podcast, but we do every Thursday something called Record Live. So we've been interviewing at the moment people, and this will date this podcast, so I'm sorry, but it is what it is. The Black Lives Matter movement and things like that. So yeah, it's a really great kind of a job to have, very varied. Usually I'm sitting on that side of the podcast, Jesse. I'm the one asking the questions. So
oh yeah, how the tables have been turned.
Oh,
that is so cool.
Yeah.
Did you always want to work in media, Maryellen?
Oh, that's a story and a half. Without going into too many details, I always wanted to be in a creative space. I remember being asked as a 5-year-old, what do you want to do? And it was always artist. There was never anything else. But of course, as you get older and you sort of, the real world kicks in, you realize that that's not necessarily that feasible. So I always knew I wanted to work in a creative or writing space. But funnily enough, up until this time last year, I was studying a law degree, which I managed to finish but will probably never use. So I think God has really given me this particular job. It was such divine intervention, and it got me out of that career path, which has been a real blessing. So not that lawyers or anything like that is bad. Lawyers are fantastic. It's not for me. Corporate life is
all lawyers are evil. No, that's cool. That's so cool. Awesome. Well, hey, today we are going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff, but I really wanted to focus in on how you guys have been navigating this whole wacky, bizarre season that we've been kind of all living and enduring through the last 3-4 months, whatever the case may be, and how we see the future moving forward. But before we do that, we have to do the most important part of the podcast. It is, of course, the question of the week.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So, in case you don't know, this is just a very random question. I haven't told these guys what it is. In fact, I don't think I even told them that we were doing this. So,
I'm for it.
all right. So this is all about the hot takes. All right. So this is our hot take. This should be called hot take of the week. But anyway, the question is, what do you think is the most overrated TV show or movie? The show or the show or movie that is, everybody loves it. It's so popular, universally loved, but you just think is so overrated. Either of you can go first.
Bro, why do you have to put wedges in my relationship?
Oh no!
No,
oh no!
It's Friends. I think Friends is one of the most basic shows out there, and Sorry, like I'm offending people left, right, and center here, but it's not the basicness or basicity. I don't know what you call it.
Basil. I feel like we're getting into herbs.
Yeah, it's not the basil nature of it. It's more how, like, disproportionately popular it is to the quality of the show.
I'm so offended.
And Maryellen loves it, so like I'll watch it. No problems. It's not like it's something I dislike. It's just overrated.
You're just salty because it's won like the best sitcom of all time, but you like Seinfeld more. That's why you're saying this.
I'm a Seinfeld guy, and that's kind of like at odds with liking Friends.
Yeah. Seinfeld's just got a little bit more of an edge. It's a little bit more cynical. It's a little bit more, I mean, it's a show about nothing. I mean, you know.
What about you?
For me, the first thing that comes to my mind, and I'm sure there's many that I could list, and not to offend like half of the world's population right now, but Lord of the Rings. I'm sorry. Like, I've watched them. I've watched both like the director's cut and the extended cut, or whatever it is. Like, one's like 4 hours and one's 3 hours per episode. And the first one, maybe like half of the first one was okay, but then after that, I don't even know what's happening anymore. Like, it was just, maybe it's just more of a female thing, but yeah, I think it's a bit overrated. I'm very sorry to say that, but
you know, I used to like you, Maryellen. I just thought you were a great person.
So this question, Jesse, has driven a wedge between all three of us in different ways. So the rest of the podcast could be interesting.
Forgive me, for I know not what I do. Oh my goodness.
Hey, I'm still tight with Jesse.
Hey, look, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And you know what? Karina, my wife, and I are pretty well on that same wavelength as far as where you guys are at. Karina has, since during lockdown, we watched The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings back to back. She enjoyed that. She likes The Hobbit. It's more fun. I'm not as much of a fan. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. I've been a Lord of the Rings fan for a long time, so it's just you can't win with that sort of question, unfortunately. But you know, I was going to say Friends as well, but I'll have to go another step and probably alienate even more people and say The Big Bang Theory. Another show that my wife loves, sadly. She loves Friends. She loves Big Bang. I mean, it is what it is. I don't know. I think Big Bang was kind of dated for its time. And as time has gone by, I just think that it's gotten less and less relevant to where society is actually at. I don't know. I just watched some of the earlier episodes and I see this sort of humor, and it's that very sort of 2.5 Men style humor, which is, of course, you know, Chuck Lorre, you know, created both shows and all that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I don't know. Doesn't do it.
Vibe. I remember being sort of, it would have been like maybe sometime in high school or something like that, and seeing that Big Bang Theory was on TV and not knowing what it was and not watching it because I was like a 6-day literal creationist that like stood by what I wanted to read into the Bible and all the rest. And and then I watched it once and felt like dirty. I was like, oh, this isn't right. Like, I'm watching the Big Bang Theory.
Oh my goodness, you just brought back a memory of when I was in high school and like it would come on TV and Mum always said, you're not allowed to watch that. Don't watch it, it'll brainwash you, this kind of thing, not knowing what it was about.
Yeah, not about science, but about like bad humor. It'll brainwash you into liking bad TV shows.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, that is so funny. Yeah. My family was the same until they started watching it and they were like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And I was like, at that point, I was like, I'm over it. I'm done now. If my parents like it, I don't like it anymore.
Is that just a thing though? Like, I feel like my parents or our parents' generation is just one cycle of fads out of sync, you know? Like Facebook, you see, like Maryellen's dad, he's like 78.
78,
yeah, 78, and he's got Facebook now. And he's like complaining about how people add him on Facebook and stuff. And I'm like, I'm ready to deactivate, man. Like,
Yep.
you just joined.
Yeah, he complains about getting emails from Facebook, like 10 a day or whatever. Everyone's updating their status. That's the issue. But
He knows how to use Facebook, but he doesn't know how to turn off the email notifications.
Anyway, Jesse, I'm fully sidetracking this.
I feel it.
Forgive me, man.
I feel it. No, that's all good. That's all good. Hey, so today I'd love us to talk about, well, first of all, how have you guys been going through this weird lockdown period? How's life been for you?
Oh, look, it's a difficult one because I actually feel really selfish in my answer. I feel like the whole world is crumbling. You know, you watch the news and it's just like one thing after the next.
Yeah.
2020 being an absolute like train wreck. And I'm sitting there and I'm like waiting. It's like a slow motion shoot 'em up sequence, and I'm waiting for the bullets to hit me. I'm just waiting and nothing's happening, and I'm still sitting comfortably on the couch in my pajamas with some hot chocolate in my hand. Like, hang on a second, is this even real? Like, because for me, I haven't really been affected that much. I mean, I'm working from home still. We're going back in a couple of weeks. But like overall, minus some probably like social feelings of sort of, you know, loneliness and things like that, it's been okay. And that's in a purely like day-to-day way. But yeah, what about you?
Yeah, it's tough. I spend a lot of time working. That's kind of my sort of like respite from all of this like COVID stuff and lockdowns and all the rest. I just ended up working a lot more. And not for no reason. Like, we probably had, and we're in the luxury goods business, so it's completely counterintuitive, but we probably had our best sales quarter ever on like recorded history. And
Wow.
that's like a combination of probably thousands of different things. I wouldn't pin it to one thing, but what it's meant is that I've lived a lot of my hours in a bubble where I'm sort of disconnected from reality. And the only times I kind of feel it were like, especially when lockdown was a little bit more serious, not now, but you know, when you go out to buy some groceries and you have to queue up to go to Woolies, or just noticing that like the place I go to for lunch is, you know, packed up all its chairs and you can only take takeout and things like that. So that's really been those small quality of life things that just, they don't even go bad, they just change. And aside from that, it's definitely been like the social void. Like, that's the actual biggest impact. And you don't realize it for the first week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and suddenly it's like, oh, I haven't seen, you know, these people that I see every single Saturday and maybe every single Friday night or Saturday afternoon. I don't see them. And when I do, it's like a party, you know, and that's not natural. Like, I've lived my entire life meeting up with my friends every single week. And
it's just what you do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, we're both fairly involved in our church community, both in like leadership roles, just very involved. But yeah, for me, like, it all hit like a ton of bricks. Like, yeah, for the first probably month, even I was almost relieved. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Like, before that, I had been catching up with people for various reasons, probably like 3 out of 5 of like the work nights per week. And I work full time, so that was intense. And on top of that, I was doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So just getting to breathe and just be like, oh, the pressure was so nice. But then suddenly it all just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was kind of depressed. It was a really weird emotional reaction just suddenly came on. And even now I'm still kind of trying to recover from that by catching up with people again. But I almost forget that the reason for my lack of like closeness with people is coronavirus. And I feel really guilty. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry I haven't put up with you. Like, where's our friendship gone? Oh, hang on a second. We've just been in lockdown for 3 months.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Do you guys, would you class yourselves as introverts or extroverts, or where do you sort of fall on that spectrum?
Good question. I'm definitely more introverted. I could be locked up like for a week and be totally fine, but I think Josh is the opposite.
Yeah, I think in social settings I'm an extrovert, but often I work alone, and
Yep.
that's like a 9-10 hour day that I don't talk to anyone, and it's fine. Like I could keep doing this, but I think that's only because I'm occupied. As soon as I'm not, it becomes a bit antsy.
Because as you were talking about it, I was like, that is not the usual sort of how you would stereotypically see like an artisan type job. You would usually see the artisan as the guy who kind of like, I'll just go to my workshop and I'll just whittle away for hours very happily creating whatever masterpiece he's creating, That's that's interesting. That's interesting.
I don't know about masterpieces, bro, but they're definitely pieces.
Hey man, you got to get those 10,000 hours in, eh?
Yeah, I'm a long shot away. Yeah.
So you both mentioned that you are heavily involved in leadership at in church and all that sort of stuff. And Josh, you also mentioned that you transitioned from youth ministry to teen ministry. How has COVID affected your ministry and the people adjacent to you, up and down, all that sort of stuff? How's that been for you guys?
Yeah, not great. Not only did I transition from youth to teen ministry, I also got in touch with our Pathfinder club and said, "Hey, Mellen, do you want to teach a Pathfinder class?" And that was right at the start of the year, kind of like towards the end of last year. And we snuck in one hall meeting, which is like
to which only 2 people turned up, like 2 people in our class turned up. So it was like the first intro one.
Yeah. No, it was 3 people, and 2 of them were adults.
Big success.
Yeah. And I'm getting hyped up. Like, this could be the best year ever. We're going to go on camps and
it's not a small Pathfinder club. It's a pretty big one as well. So we were really shocked.
It's like maybe one of the largest in Sydney, maybe like top 5 or something like that. And we snuck this one hall meeting. And like Pathfinders, for those who don't know, it's like Scouts. It's pretty much just Scouts with Bible. And I just realized really quickly as soon as the lockdown started that this year was not going to be that explosive, eye-catching, hyped up year that teens ministry needs, right? And all the plans that I kind of had in my head evaporated really quickly, and that left me pretty demotivated. Teens ministry thrives off, in my opinion, this is just like what I've either garnered from other people or made mistakes and learned from, but I think teen ministry thrives off face-to-face, high energy interaction with the teens and kids.
Yeah.
And when you are stripped of 3 out of the 4 things that you need to have a successful teens ministry, it's just so demotivating. You stop planning and you stop doing this. And thank goodness, I'm not the only one in the team, and there's been other people that are picked up the slack. And Maryellen's sister's boyfriend, Hamish, he's really involved as well. And we had a new pastor as well called Eden, and she's been doing Zoom Bible studies with the teens, and that's really refreshing because I feel like even though my ambitions and expectations were not met, someone else's spiritual gifts and giftings were brought to the highlight. So Eden is a fantastic communicator, and I think that those Zoom classes are the perfect medium for that sort of stuff. So it's I guess you can be as demotivated as you want, but as long as you're still looking for the silver linings and the positive things about this COVID situation, that's all you really need to power through.
Yeah.
How do you think the church has reacted in terms of we are such a gatherings focused organization? How has your local church sort of coped as a whole? Have you noticed any trends, or what's the situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say our local church, probably most Adventist local churches, is very focused on programs. We have a youth program, we have teen programs, the classic music, sermon, food, cafe thing afterwards, whatever, which is great. But yeah, we haven't obviously been able to do any of that. And so I guess really all that's been happening is like a midweek small group on Zoom, Friday night small group on Zoom, and then Sabbath morning Sabbath school on Zoom. And I say only, but that's like 3 things a week, but still.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's all on Zoom. But what's been really interesting is that we've actually had more attendance at Sabbath school now online than what we have actually in person ever. Which is crazy. And I think that goes to show how much people don't like getting up early to get to church. But like as good as it has been to be able to catch up with people still, and as grateful as I am for technology, it's just not the same. It's really hard to build that sort of culture, that excitement. And so in terms of what I do at church, I was doing communications for both youth and also the greater church community for many years before this year. But this year I kind of stepped down and I was like, I'm working for Record now. I'm going to be all communication out if I do this for church. I'm going to take on Sabbath school. And I had all of these plans in place, and you're going to have breakfast once a month, and you're going to do this and that and the other, and nothing is happened. So demotivation is definitely real.
And I think as well, we're in a really interesting scenario with our local church where we have a very large youth group, I would say, and we're sort of, I don't want to say detached, but we more or less run our own church. Within a church, yeah. So it's like we've got our own Sabbath school, we've got our own like outings, like social outings. We even occasionally do our own youth services and our own programs, like Friday night programs. And your question was like, how did the church? So I think our youth group did really well. Like we all transitioned really quickly to Zoom and stuff, but our church as a body, if you count in all like the parents and young adults with kids, all the way up to kind of retirees and grey nomads, that's dead, man. It's like,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They just tune in. I mean, not they, but like we all, as a church body, tune in on Saturday morning for the live stream service, whichever format that gets taken in. But that's it, and you have to wonder. It's like we got pulled out of a building, but where did our church go?
Yeah.
So,
What do you think? What do you think that comes down to? Is it an unwillingness to engage with the technology? Like if you say that your young adults and your sort of youth church is still pumping along with all those different touch points, but the greater church isn't, do you think there are any reason? Like, of course there are reasons, but what do you think are the reasons behind that?
Yeah, it's as with all church things, I think it's multifaceted. And I think one large facet of that problem is, I'd say like a general lack of church community that extends beyond Saturday, right? And I'd like to think that this is not an uncommon problem in the sense that we're not like special for not having a tight community outside of Saturday. But I think that's just the way, I don't want to stereotype or like point out a specific demographic, but I think that's just the way our sort of white collar, upper class community in Sydney, especially like in a metropolitan church. Is that right? Metropolitan?
Yeah.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, big words, man. I think that's how we function as this kind of slice of the demographic. We allocate our time in the week for work and for all of the kind of non-spiritual things, and our spiritual things, which also include our community bonding, fall on Saturday. So as soon as Saturday got taken out of the equation, it didn't matter like how complicated it was. Like obviously it does, but I don't think the Zoom elements, like, hey, I can't log on to Zoom or Facebook Live is being weird. I don't think that was as big as an issue as just lack of bonding, like deep interpersonal connection was.
Yeah, it's definitely not a technological issue. It's a heart issue. And what's been really interesting to me is that for most people during this time of quote unquote crisis, there's been a lot more time during the week. You know, people aren't going out at nighttime anymore. They're not catching up with these people. They don't have all these commitments. Everything's been cancelled. And I think a lot of certain demographic here, I'm guilty of this as well. So this is not like isolated to that group of people that don't have a small group during the week or whatever. But a lot of people blame, oh, I don't have enough time. Oh, I'm just too busy. Like, you know, I work full time. Do you understand how tired I am after work? I can't catch up with a small group. I can't serve at church. Like, it's just too much. And that's an excuse I hear over and over and over and over again. And I've given it myself. But the reality is that's not it, because now that there's nothing on, you still don't have the desire to catch up with people your own age at church or to XYZ, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't really know what that is. I personally think that, you know, living in a really big city where there's a lot of consumerism and materialism, you just really don't desire God because you desire all of these other things. That's another can of worms for another time. It's been interesting to see it all unfold, I guess. Yeah.
I've been saying something the last couple of episodes, and we've kind of been coming back to it over and over again, that I think this whole COVID crisis is going to reveal the Christians who are in this because they desire God and they desire community and they desire to live in the way of Jesus with other like-minded Jesus followers. And they will actually make the effort when it's difficult or awkward or strange. But I think this is also going to expose the people who were just in it they were just passengers on the train. You know, they weren't really heart and soul, flesh in the game sort of people when it came to church. They're just kind of, hey, my friends are there, my family's there, I'll just go there. And now that there is no longer here, they're not here anymore. And even in my local church, you know, I pastor a very small church by comparison to what you guys are involved with. But even saying that, there were members of my church who just weren't there. No matter how many times we emailed, called, texted, wanting to get them involved, wanting to get them, you know, engaged in something, anything. They were just people who were like, you know what, And now they're kind of, we in New Zealand are able to come and do full church now, because up until yesterday, we had no cases for like 3 weeks, and then 2 British people had to come and ruin it for everybody. But that sounded very...
Those Brits, they're ruining it for all of us. Anyway, yeah, so we're able, I mean, who knows how long this is going to last for, but these people, they're kind of slowly coming back. But it's just interesting going, man, you were not here during the winter season, but now that the ice is thawing out, you're kind of just slotting back into it. I mean, I don't feel like I'm in the right space to make a spiritual judgment call on somebody's life, but it does make me wonder. Yeah.
It's been quite surprising, actually. I guess, you know, as an Adventist, you know, you focus on the great controversy and the end of time and, you know, Jesus' return. It's like literally Seventh-day Adventist, so Jesus is coming back soon. You know? And we're so into conspiracies and all of these, you know, oh, everything bad's going to happen soon. And we're like focusing on it. Oh, you know, first it was George Bush, then it was Trump, and then it was the Pope, like all of this stuff. And 2020, we have seen so many terrible things unfold. Like it has threatened so many people's lives at like you know, a pretty serious level.
Yeah.
And yet still people aren't that interested in spirituality. Like a lot of people, like I've heard, you know, interviews of people, other podcasts and things, you know, people telling me, like telling the audience all this kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, you'd think that, like, you know, you've been spiritually asleep, quote unquote, for all this time, and suddenly all these bad things happen. You're like, oh, I've time to, you know, get out my Bible and read it now that I've got time. But people aren't doing that. So it just makes me wonder, you know, why? Is it just that we don't think it's that bad yet? Or, yeah, it is a question I've had.
It does make you wonder, how how bad do things truly need to get before people like go, you know what? I should probably get some of my ducks in the row with my spiritual understanding. I don't know. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Man, deeper philosophers than us can definitely ponder that for eons to come. I wanted to ask you guys, okay, the whole online church thing, cyber church, Facebook church, Zoom church, live streaming, Google Hangouts, the whole deal. What's been your reactions? Because I'm sure you've got your local church context, and then you've seen a whole bunch of other different churches. Maryellen, I'm sure you have like a whole different perspective on this, being in communications and seeing what everybody's doing around the whole South Pacific. What's been your reflections? Give me the hot takes.
You first.
Yeah, it works when it kind of like it rose up to the occasion in many ways, because we still communicated in a group as you could get. I think 20 years ago you would have made some sort of like group phone call or something like that in the absence of online church. But I'd say on a more sort of interpersonal level, there's something about driving to a place or walking to a place or like physically going somewhere and being forced to stay there for a certain amount of time because you went there, right? That engages you slightly more, right? What I'm trying to say is that because church is online and it's just one like Alt F4 or X button away from not being online, your level of engagement, I think, suffers. And that's probably a systemic thing. Like I can't really see how it would be just a personal thing if everyone's experiencing it. But long story short, I think it's the best that we could get in trying to bring like 20 or 30 or 50 people in on one space. And the other downside that I've had, well, actually, downside and upside is that you kind of have to, if you do want to be present, you have to listen. You can't just like shuffle over to the person next to you and start chatting away while someone's preaching on Zoom, because either A, they'll hear you if your mic's on, or then like you kind of sacrifice the whole point of being there because it is so easy to leave. Why don't you just leave? Now that's like a really cynical approach, I think, to online church. And I like really want to stress that it's probably the best thing that we could have done. But I just can't wait to go back.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. I know for me, like I see a lot of Adventist and non-Adventist churches. Basically, one of my jobs at Adventist Record is to get something called flashpoints, and it's basically a page of 8 or 9 stories from all around the division, little churches that have opened up, or 10 people have been baptized here and there or whatever. So what I do for that is I go on Facebook, I go to the search tab, I type in Adventist, then I click on pages, and then I open up every single Adventist page that I can find in the South Pacific. Now, this is like 100 different pages.
Yeah.
And then I'm like scrolling through and trying to find something of value, some news story or whatever. But what has been really interesting to me is that at first, the first month maybe of the closures, the lockdowns, it was sort of a novel thing to be online and to have a church service. And we were really lucky at our church that we were on that fairly quickly. But now, like every single Facebook page, doesn't matter how small the church is, there's like either a live stream Zoom or there is like a, video of a sermon or this or that or the other. And look, not to draw this, I can't think of any better analogy, but don't think I'm insensitive. It's actually a psychological concept, and I'm not sure what it's called. But when you see, for example, Asian Aid or something advertising, sponsor a child. When you see that advertisement 100 times, suddenly you don't even see that starving child anymore. Like it's just, you just scroll past it because you're so exhausted by these images. And I think it's the same thing with this online church concept. People are just over it.
Yeah.
And what's more on top of that when you can just select and pick and choose all of these sermons, whether it be on YouTube or Facebook or wherever, are you really going to listen to, I don't know, the Back of Burke pastor preaching, or are you going to listen to like the Stephen Furticks and the Tim Kellers and there's sort of this selection bias that we have, and you can pick and choose whatever you want to hear and ignore what you don't want to hear. And I'm not sure that God works like that, the gospel works like that,
Yeah.
And I guess on that, I think that it's really telling, and like we talked about this very briefly before we started the podcast, but like it's gotten to a point where or at least some people have satirized online church, and it's like,
yes,
it's just like a small plug to Jono's fantastic Facebook page, but
yes. Please explain to people what that is.
Okay. Well, long story short, I don't actually know what it is, but I got an invite to join this Facebook group like 2 or 3 nights ago.
What's it called? Okay, I'm going to say a group where we all pretend to be members of the same church.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought it was like a serious project. I thought it was like another online church project, and like maybe like SEO people's voice, or I don't know, like
Right.
And then I saw like the first 2 or 3 posts, and it was just a meme page. It was like a really highbrow church-based meme page, and I sort of fell in love. And I think I've not felt these emotions this deeply in a long time towards something.
I gotta say, as somebody who is a part of many groups that people invite me to, sometimes not even really wanting to be part of the groups, and all the conversations and all the fights that happen, this is like a breath of fresh air. This is, and it's so meta. It's like if this whole season was an episode of Community, or something like that. It just incredible.
And Maryellen, because I showed her the thing, I think maybe 2 nights ago or something, and she just said it's like the A-class SDA youth and like highlight celebrities of the SDA like Australian community just got together on the Facebook page and started memeing their way out of COVID, and I love that. Like I love that it's got like a meta aspect to it, because I bet there's so many people that are just so fed up with online church and they don't have an avenue to vent.
Yeah.
And even if this is like one small Facebook page that, presents a little bit of humor about the whole situation, it's so worth it. It's so, so good.
Yep. Well, this is what meme culture is all about, right? It's about oftentimes something horrible or something really serious, and it's a way of collective therapeuticizing. I don't even know. Collective. It's like, yeah. It's like collective therapy for everybody to just meme it up. It's so good. And I also appreciate, just quick, once again, plug to Jono. I also appreciate that the banner is a picture of a church by Lake Tekapo in the South Island, the Church of the Good Shepherd. It's just mwah. It's beautiful. He couldn't resist not putting a little bit of his Kiwi heritage in there, even though he has betrayed New Zealand to live in Melbourne. But that's just a small detail. Anyway.
You guys just swapped countries, that's all.
Pretty much. Oh yeah. So, oh my goodness, it's a weird, and this is part of this whole conversation, is me thinking, okay, what are the plans that I had for this year, personally, ministry, work, all that sort of stuff? What were the plans that I had for this year? And when I think back to all the stuff that I thought was going to happen this year, like I started this year going, oh my goodness, this is going to be the busiest year of my life. I was supposed to be a delegate going to the general conference session in like a week's time, and I've been a delegate for like 2 years. Like they asked me 2 years ago, so I've been like stressing out about going, excited, terrified for like 2 years, and then they cancel it, and I'm like, what was all that stress and excitement for? You know, I had all these plans in my local church, my chaplaincy, for the podcast. Oh my goodness, we had so many plans, man. But they all kind of evaporated out of nowhere. And I think that maybe that's the theme for 2020, is this year where we all kind of collectively came together, started doing something, and then just stopped for absolutely no reason. What is, I mean, we've kind of talked a little bit about that with you guys already, but how was your experience of that? Like, what plans have come on hold, or, you know, when you thinking about all this stuff?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you mentioned the general conference. I had a similar experience. I was asked in, I think it was like November last year or something, because I present this little news bulletin for my job, and someone picked it up at the GC and they're like, hey, would you like to present the afternoon news program at the general conference? And I was like,
wow.
Oh, yes, like, that'd be awesome. Like, we go to America.
Yeah.
So it was going to be my year of travel, because Josh and I were going to go with Pathfinders somewhere, and then it was general conference. And then on top of that, we're getting married. We are still getting married, but the plan was...
This would be the worst time, by the way, to announce any sudden changes to that engagement status.
Yeah, live.
Anyway,
well, I'm glad to hear that.
Be a honeymoon as well, and so we were like,
Yeah.
I was really excited to get to travel. But as soon as the lockdown kicked in and everything just sort of fell through the cracks, like for the first week of our engagement, I was so excited and, like, you know, planning everything. Oh, we need to call this person, this person, this person. And suddenly everything stopped for a month. And as much as I could complain about not being able to travel to America, not that I would complain now, it seems like a terrible place to be. But as much as I could complain, I'm actually very, very grateful for that downtime to just reassess my priorities, to actually practice some gratitude for what I do have, because I think we're just so lucky to have come out of this as well as we have, especially in Australia and New Zealand. So yeah. But what about you, Josh? What are your plans?
Yeah, well, getting married, I think we got engaged in February, and it was sort of like plan as quickly as you can so we could get it out of the way. And then as soon as we were like about to start locking things down, COVID hit, and it just threw all the plans up into the air. Like you couldn't be certain about a single thing. And it was like a very good backdrop to what the next 3 months were going to be, which was actually pretty good, because that was the biggest thing outside of travel. I was going to go to the US as well for a business trip, actually all over the world for a long business trip, and also to New Zealand with the Pathfinders to do the root burn. And because all the wedding and sort of post-engagement plans got shifted, it framed my perspective really well for everything that was going to happen. I was like, okay, well, it is what it is. You can't change it. You can't do nothing about it. But I think it still took me about maybe a whole month to start thinking about things positively and trying to find that silver lining. But in terms of church as well, I think, it's just sad for me, because I went through a little phase of almost being probably on the edge of burnt out. And I was really excited to establish good habits in saying no to things and saying yes to the things that matter. And I just held on to that burnt out feeling through lockdown and through COVID, and didn't have a chance to exercise that say yes for the right thing muscle. And it's only now towards the middle part of June that I've been able to slowly exercise that. But yeah, that's about it. It's very good that we're coming out on the other end pretty unscathed, as you said. Yeah.
And I think that's what I think COVID has really illustrated for a lot of people is that it's given us this big fat opportunity of potential, and said, hey, what are you going to do with it? And I'll be honest, I don't think I really used my potential to the most creative or innovative degree that I possibly could have. When we went into it, I had all these ideas. I'll finally start working on that novel that I started, or I'll make the YouTube channel that's not Burn the Haystack, so I can make videos. But did it all really happen? No, it didn't. Whilst everybody else was baking brioche bread and everybody doing like 72 different versions of The Blessing by Elevation all throughout the world. I was watching Lord of the Rings. But at the same time, we were also doing Zoom Sabbath School. We were also I was making videos for my primary school students, doing stupid things with props and playing the guitar and just being a wacko. So it was also a really fun opportunity to do different things that I've never done before. I wanted to ask you guys, and man, we're going through all the deep questions. One more deep question, all right? I promise, just one more deep question. What are you hopeful for the next half of 2020? What are you hopeful for, and what is your gut telling you?
Oof, wow. I mean, on a lighter note, I'm hopeful that business meetings and board meetings and all of that stuff will remain on Zoom. That would be really great.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it's like Burn the Haystack. What is it? You take the best and you burn the rest?
Yeah.
Save the best and burn the rest. Yeah. I just hope that we do that in a whole Zoom sense as well. We take the best bits of isolation and we keep them, and we get rid of whatever is not good. But in terms of predictions, look, I almost don't even want to say anything, because I think this year has just been a really big lesson for me in not trying to plan too many things and not getting too invested emotionally in sort of my plans for the future. Like the Bible says, man, what is it? Man thinks, this is embarrassing.
Man makes his plans, but the Lord orders his paths. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I think we probably haven't seen the worst of it yet. The news tends to tell us that, and I know the situation in America is still, like, the cases are still building. It actually hasn't reached its peak yet, some experts are saying. Yeah. So that's not great news. I don't know, maybe... Do you have anything to say? I might think of some other stuff.
Yeah, pretty much just that. Like, I think I'm a fairly cynical person when it comes to like the world news and world matters and things like that. I just think, as great as these economic subsidies are, not to like put an economic tangent or anything, like this is not what this podcast is about, I guess. But I think we're really treading on eggshells as governments, like worldwide governments, and spending so much money that doesn't exist. And it frustrates me, because I spend my entire day making something from raw materials, like going from something to something else, like adding value through the process. And what I'm seeing with a lot of the governments and how they're subsidizing wages and like letting people borrow reserve banks letting governments borrow infinite amounts of money. There is no added value in that process. Like, you can't add value to something that doesn't exist. That money's just being pulled out of thin air. And I think we're really short-sighted or at least we have been in the last 150 years as kind of economic beings. And we just go into these like 10-year or maybe 15-year cycles of boom and bust. And I feel like we haven't seen the worst of that. So that's my like gut feeling. But my hope is that it doesn't happen. My hope is that we somehow like plateau out and equalize and stabilize and do all those like economic terms. And because if it does go bad, like the likelihood is that it will go very bad. And then
if 2008 was the GFC, then that's 12 years ago. So that's planting us right between that time gap.
Yeah. And before that was like .com, which was kind of mid to late 90s.
Yep.
So I just hope that COVID has taught us how to survive in like fairly tough times. And my encouragement, I guess, is to everyone is just stay safe, like stay economically safe, stay spiritually safe, stay socially safe, and like health-wise as well. But just err on the side of caution, because like it's pretty Adventist train of thought, but plan for the worst and hope for the best.
It's interesting that you mentioned women busting. As you were talking about this economic angle, it just brought me back to a spiritual angle that I'd like to share. We have the story of the Israelites in the Old Testament, and they are at one minute they are like seeking God with all their heart because they regret what they've done, and then God saves them, and then the next minute, they've like turned away from God again. You have this cycle throughout history again and again and again. And God knows our human nature so well, because he always predicts this, and he always knows that we're going to become complacent again or forget him or whatever it might be. And in the aftermath of this, my hope is that, the isolation has taught us as church members a lesson. Don't take human interaction for granted, and really try to invest in those relationships and prioritize relationships and things. But I don't know, I just can't help feeling that once the high of meeting together again, maybe for that first month or two, is over, that we're just going to go back to our old ways. And I really want to say that we won't, but the reality is I think we're treating COVID as like this, pivotal world, changing moment. But what about the world wars, and what about all of these other terrible things that happened through history? They permanently change us? I mean, maybe, but I don't know. So it's hard to predict, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's such a good thought, because so last week I talked to Josh Stadnick, and he talked about how are we going through a blizzard or an ice age, and the obviously the difference between the two is huge. A blizzard is very short, it might be very intense, but then it ends, and then the following morning the sun rises and everything's back to normal. But if we're going through an ice age, then things are going to pivot and things are going to change. Financially, I think we're going to definitely see lasting change for the good or for the bad. I think that remains yet to be seen. And I think we probably are all in the same boat when we think it's probably going to be the bad, but we will remain cautiously hopeful about the future in that area. But I think the thing that he talked about was going through an ice age is not necessarily something that just happens to us, but it's something that we can choose to embrace. So in that sense, do we choose to allow the human nature to just run its course and for us to go back to what's comfortable in whatever context that might look like? But do we actually choose to allow the how does Carey Nieuwhof put it? I can't remember now, but like the interruption or there was some word that he uses, but it's basically from this point on, things are changing. And after this point, things are not going to be the same again. And are we going to choose that pathway? That is the choice that is ahead. I don't know.
Yeah, it's that classic inflection point. And you can choose to like embrace the positive things that can come from an ice age, and it might be the perfect time to just hibernate and hunker down and wait for that long-awaited morning outside of just like burning all your fat in one night, like hoping for the sun to rise. Yeah. If it's just a blizzard, like that's a beautiful analogy. That's like one of the most accurate ways to describe what we're going through right now.
There is a quote that I'm not going to try and say, because I'll probably butcher it again. But it's along the lines of, the telltale sign of a Christian, like a dedicated on fire Christian, should be that when terrible things happen, they are still happy, like they emotionally respond differently to the crisis. And I guess that's my prayer for all of us, that we are able to have peace, choose love, choose gratitude. Easier said than done, but it is possible with God. So.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Well, I think that is a lovely thought to bring this conversation to a close. Thank you guys once again for coming on and chatting about all things COVID and everything else in between. This has been cool.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, man.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm going to give you guys a moment to spruik whatever it is that you've got going on. So I'll go to Josh first. Josh, if people are in the business or are they wanting a beautiful luxury watch, where do they go? How do they get in touch with you? How can they pull out their checkbook and write you $1 million check? Tell us.
I don't recommend anyone to buy any luxury goods in this climate, but if you do want to check what I do out and look at it as maybe pieces of art rather than luxury items, you can head to Instagram. That's probably where you'll find all of our photos the easiest, and that's Nicholas Hacko Watch. And both Nick, my dad, and I run that Instagram account. We put up a bunch of pretty photos and all the rest. So that's what I've got going on, and it's taking up a lot of my time. So I really appreciate your patronage, even if it's patronage. Rather. I don't want you to patronage. Even if it's just virtual and just observant.
Hey man, I have it on good authority that we have a couple of millionaires listening to Burn the Haystacks, so you never know.
Everyone's a millionaire on the streets of heaven, bro.
Crown of gold. Maryellen, how about you? What if people want to learn more about Adventist Record and all the good stuff you got going on, where would you point them to?
So again, Instagram tends to be the place to be these days. If you head over to Adventist Record, all one word, on Instagram, we've got some great content there. Also on Facebook, that's probably our main platform for news in general, updates 4 or 5 times a day with all the new news stories from across the South Pacific. So definitely check us out. I like to think that as a social media manager myself, I like to think it's pretty good quality, but
Hey, I will say on Facebook, you guys are relentless with your content. It's very impressive.
Thank you. That means a lot. Yeah.
Like the love of Jesus. I don't know. Your love is relentless. I don't know. Anyway, all right.
Better than reckless. That's mine.
Oh, that's so cool. Hey, once again, thank you guys. And just a reminder for everybody else, this is our final episode of season 3. We are going to be going on a month hiatus. Josh Stothers is busy being a dad right now. So just so appreciated our 3 Joshes and our Maryellen who have jumped in the last couple weeks to sub him out. But we are going to be coming back on the first week of August with season 4 of Burn the Haystack. I'm sure Stothers will be back by then. If not, I might just have to fire him and find somebody more committed. But hey, I'm not a dad, so I've been bagging him out so much. I don't think he's listening to these episodes, but I don't know. Stothers, if you are listening, I love you. So happy for you guys with your new baby girl. If you guys want to keep up with everything that's happening, Burn the Haystack, yes, we are not going to be releasing episodes for the month of July, but you can still find everything Burn the Haystack related at burnthehaystack.org. The Instagram will continue to be updated, the Facebook occasionally, and hopefully we'll be pumping out some more blog articles throughout the month of July if Josh Wood decides to be more creative and write some more. So that's really cool. But having said that, if this is the first time you're listening to the podcast, welcome. Yeah, bit disappointed that you're not going to be having episodes for the next month. But hey, go back and listen to some old episodes. If you haven't already, subscribe and you'll be ready and waiting for August when we come back. And apart from that, guys, we love you. Enjoy the month of July. Catch up on some old episodes. Go and listen to some other podcasts. Take a walk. I don't know, maybe propose to that girl or that boy. Who knows? And apart from that, we'll see you in a month. Josh, could you do us the honors and send us out?
Thank you for listening to Burn the Haystack, and we'll see you, or at least Josh and Jesse will see you when they come back in season 4. Bye-bye. Was that okay?
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool, man. Thank you.
Okay. You can always overdub it, bro. I know how you can cut it. You can cut it up and slice it and all that.